For years, Jana Duggar has been one of the most talked about members of the Duggar family, not because of scandals or loud headlines, but because of her silence. In a family where milestones are often announced publicly and life changes are shared quickly, Jana's path has remained noticeably different. That difference has raised a question that many viewers, followers, and observers continue to ask quietly but persistently: is Jana Duggar really free to choose her own life? To understand why this question matters, it's important to understand the environment Jana grew up in. The Duggar family became widely known through reality television, presenting a structured lifestyle built around faith, family roles, and clear expectations. Within that structure, individual choices were often framed as shared family decisions rather than personal ones. From a very young age, each child was assigned responsibilities, and over time, those responsibilities became part of their identity. Jana, as the oldest daughter, occupied a unique position. While her brothers and younger sisters moved through different life stages, her role appeared steady and consistent. She became known as someone who managed household routines, supported younger siblings, and maintained order behind the scenes. Over the years, this role was often praised publicly as dedication and selflessness. But as time passed, some viewers began to wonder whether this role was chosen freely or simply inherited by circumstance. In many families, the oldest child often carries additional responsibility. In large families, that responsibility can become even more pronounced. What makes Jana's situation particularly interesting is how long that responsibility seemed to last. While several of her siblings transitioned into new phases of life, Jana remained closely tied to the family home and daily structure. This continuity led to growing curiosity, not just about her lifestyle, but about the level of autonomy she truly had. Public discussions around Jana often focus on the concept of choice. Choice can be difficult to measure from the outside, especially in families with strong belief systems. In such environments, personal decisions are often guided by shared values. That guidance can feel supportive to some and restrictive to others. The challenge is that from the outside, it is nearly impossible to separate personal desire from cultural expectation without direct insight. This is where public perception begins to form. Over time, viewers noticed patterns. Jana did not follow the same timeline as many of her sisters. She appeared comfortable in familiar routines, yet her comfort was often interpreted in different ways. Some saw contentment. Others saw obligation. Neither interpretation can be proven definitively, but both exist because of how the story has been presented over the years. As social media grew, so did speculation. Every post, photo, or absence from public announcements became a point of discussion. People began reading meaning into small details, not because those details were dramatic, but because they were rare. In a family where life updates were once frequent, quiet moments stood out. Jana's quiet presence became a canvas onto which many projected their own assumptions. It's important to pause here and clarify something crucial. Observing public behavior is not the same as knowing private truth. Jana has not publicly framed herself as restricted or unhappy. At the same time, she has not actively described herself as fully independent in the way modern audiences often define independence. This ambiguity is precisely why the question continues to exist. Another layer to this conversation is the difference between freedom and preference. Freedom implies the ability to choose. Preference implies satisfaction with that choice. Someone can prefer a path that looks unusual to others and still be fully autonomous. The difficulty lies in understanding whether Jana's path reflects preference, expectation, or a combination of both. From a cultural perspective, Jana's situation highlights a broader conversation about how independence is defined. In many societies, independence is associated with moving out, starting a separate household, or pursuing individual goals publicly. In other cultures, independence can exist within family structures, expressed through responsibility, contribution, and stability. Jana's life sits at the intersection of these interpretations. Public reaction to Jana's story has evolved over time. Early discussions were mild and curious. As years passed, curiosity turned into analysis. Online conversations shifted from asking what Jana was doing to questioning why she was doing it. This shift reflects a larger change in audience expectations. Viewers who once accepted family roles as presented began to reevaluate them through modern lenses. What's notable about these public reactions is that they are rarely based on new information. Instead, they are based on reinterpretation of old patterns. People look back at earlier footage, interviews, and family dynamics and apply current understanding to past behavior. This retroactive analysis fuels ongoing discussion, even in the absence of new developments. Some observers argue that Jana's stability is a form of strength. They point out that not everyone measures fulfillment through visible change. Staying rooted, supporting family, and maintaining consistency can be intentional choices. Others argue that when one person remains in the same role while everyone else moves on, it raises questions about opportunity and agency. Neither perspective fully answers the central question. And perhaps that is the point. Jana's story resists simple conclusions because it exists in a space where personal identity, family culture, and public expectation overlap. Another aspect worth examining is silence itself. Silence can mean many things. It can indicate privacy, contentment, reflection, or simply a desire not to participate in public narratives. In Jana's case, silence has become part of her public identity. Rather than clarifying her position, it has allowed others to fill in the gaps. This leads to an important observation about modern media culture. When public figures do not explain themselves, audiences often do it for them. These explanations may feel logical, empathetic, or critical, but they are still projections. Jana's limited public commentary means that much of what is said about her reflects the audience more than it reflects her. As discussions continue, the idea of freedom remains central. Freedom does not always look dramatic. Sometimes it looks quiet. Sometimes it looks like staying where you are. Sometimes it looks like choosing not to explain yourself. The challenge for observers is recognizing that freedom can exist even when it does not align with expected narratives. At the same time, it is fair to acknowledge that strong family systems can influence individual paths. Influence does not automatically equal control, but it can shape decisions in subtle ways. Understanding this nuance is essential when discussing someone like Jana, whose life has been closely tied to family identity. Public reaction often swings between concern and admiration. Some express worry that Jana's potential has been limited. Others admire her consistency and loyalty. These reactions are not mutually exclusive. They reflect the complexity of interpreting a life that has unfolded largely off-camera in recent years. The takeaway from Jana Duggar's story is not a definitive answer.